Saving America one entrepreneur at a time. It's the Biz Wrap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs. It's Biz Wrap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Wrap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and this is the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. It's the show that fights for small business and entrepreneurs. We're helping build economic freedom in the United States through the personal business endeavors of folks just like you and me. I'm a small businessman too. I go through a lot of the challenges and problems and issues that you're probably going through right now, but hopefully together and with the guests and other contributors to my show, I can help you make your business better. And speaking of experts, I've got somebody holding on the line here. He's an expert. He is the coordinator of the USC Bridges to Business Success Program. Now this, I'm going to let him give you all the details, but I'll just give you a very, very quick overview. This program is designed for veterans and minority-owned businesses to help them develop their business technical skills so that they can basically get more business and in particular deal with some of the large potential amounts of business that you could get from governments and large corporations. And that can be a little tricky. You have to know the proper way of dealing with these organizations in order to be able to get business from them. So without any further information on my part, Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
Well, not a problem. And this sounds really interesting. You know, I am a firm believer in education. If you want to do better in business, you've got to learn. But, not everybody has time to go back to school and get an MBA or something like that. And frankly, for a lot of businesses, I'm not so sure an MBA would really help, but this sounds like a program that really has a lot of nuts and bolts applicability to probably people in the construction industry, the various trades, engineers, plumbers, and what have you. So give us kind of the, if you will, talk a little bit about what the program is and kind of what it entails.
I'd love to. Yes, the program is focused on addressing the small businessman, those that are with maybe 4 or 5 employees all the way up to 30 or 40 employees. We'd like to assist them in not only enhancing their business acumen, their business skills, but also in accessing opportunities for contracts. The program allows or teaches how to become certified as a minority small business, as a veteran small business, under the various certification programs that are called DBEs, or Disadvantaged Business Enterprises. There's a lot of classifications. Some are based on ethnicity, so that the Hispanic, the American, African American, Asian American classes can certify as disadvantaged business enterprise under a minority status. There is also a sexual status or sex status for females, small women with small businesses, small business enterprise or woman business enterprise. There is also now an ability for veterans to get their business certified as veteran-owned businesses. Now, the question is why? Why do I want to be certified? Well, one of the primary reasons is that you have the opportunity to access larger contracts. Many of the big construction programs that go on both at the city level, at the state level, at the local level, look towards having a diversity program, which means they are required in their mandate to bring to the table or subcontract with disadvantaged businesses, with minority businesses. They need to meet certain quotas. Now, difficult for them to just go out and say, well, I need a minority business out there. I need a disadvantaged business. Where do I get them? Well, they have to be certified. There's a process that they go through to become certified, and then we provide them with those lists, and then we teach them how to enroll and how to get pre-qualified with many of the major contract providers, whether it be Metro, whether it be large primary contractors, Caltrans, any of the large providers of business that are involved always in some type of building and construction function. Not only that, but supplies as well. They can also look to access supplies from minority contractors. So that's a very important aspect of helping a small business grow their business by becoming certified in a specific class and being exposed to that, to those people that issue those contracts, so that they can receive these invitations to bid on various contracts that are provided. One of the things that the providers want, the contractors and the major providers of services, is that they want to make sure that the people that are in there, the subcontractor, are qualified, that they have enough knowledge to navigate the waters of what it takes to get their business to qualify with their firm. And that's kind of what we teach. We teach some fundamentals of business management. We teach a little bit about government relationships, why you need business and insurances, legal aspects. And one of the important things is access to capital.
Hey,
one of the things
Jim,
that you hear
Jim, let me interrupt. Jim, let me interrupt right there.
I just can go on. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, this is good.
This
is good
I get excited about this, and I just go on and on and on.
Yeah, I just want to let people know, because we got people tuning in all the time. We're talking to Jim Bursary. He's the coordinator of the USC Bridges to Business Success. I'm not sure who coined that, but I'll tell you, you really got to say that slowly, because the USC Bridges to Business Success is a bit of a tongue twister there. But and then Jim's been talking to us about opportunities for veteran-owned, minority-owned businesses, and how if you are a minority-owned business, or you're a veteran-owned business, or a woman-owned business, how you want to become certified so you can get on the list, that when large contractors are looking for subcontractors, or looking for people to hire for various work, that you're readily there and readily available. You can take advantage of that. And by the way, that's something that just in general, Jim, not a lot of small businesses, I think, know this, but government agencies and large corporations, many of them have mandates to support minority-owned businesses, whether it be on some kind of a racial type of minority, or whether it's people like veterans, or whether it's women-owned businesses. And I had a client of mine that was actually a subcontractor for the U.S. military, and she was actually making some type of clothing that was used by the military, and the military mandates that a certain percentage of all their procurement must come from minority-owned businesses, and she was lucky. She got in on 3 counts, because first of all, she was a minority. She was Hispanic, even though she was actually born in Spain, but she had a Hispanic last name, so she qualified. She was a female, so she got a preference there, and she actually had her manufacturing plant in an economically depressed zone, and so she got 3 qualifications, and it was great. She had quite a nice business. Yeah, she was doing about 10, 15 million a year, nice little company. So don't forget, if you're in business, if you're a small business person, that there are mandates from big corporations and from government to try and hire businesses like yours. And not only that, there's even just sometimes mandates about hiring small business in general. So you got to be cognizant of that. You can find out more about that from Jim Bursary at his USC Bridges to Business Success. So Jim, we're almost coming up. We're about 1 minute from a break, but very quickly, how long does this program take? What kind of an investment in time does somebody have to make in order to take advantage of your program?
Well, we ask them to invest the next 10 weekends. The classes are held on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and we're having 10 consecutive sessions beginning on the 19th of July, and the only break we will have is during the Labor Day weekend. Other than that, we're going straight through, and then we'll have a little bit of break, and then we start all over with another session for those that missed on the first session.
Okay, Jim,
it's a 10-week and 10 Saturday commitment.
Okay, Jim, can you stick with us after the break?
Sure, love to.
Okay, we will be back with BizRap Radio and your host, Michael Manahan, and Jim Bursary from the USC Bridges to Business Success program right after these messages from our sponsors. And we're back on BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. This is the radio for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And we have our guest on the show right now. We have Jim Bursary from the USC Bridges to Business Success program. He was talking about the program in the last segment. This program is designed for veterans and minority-owned businesses. It can help you get registered as a minority-owned business. It's a 10-week program. You meet Saturday mornings for 4 hours for 10 weeks. And Jim, what goes on during each of these sessions? Can you kind of give us an example of maybe what one session might be like?
Well, sure. One of the popular sessions is the Access to Capital session. And what we do in the Access to Capital, aside from teaching them what it is that lenders require for them to go out and seek different types of debt capital for their businesses, is we actually bring in bankers. We actually bring in people from the Small Business Administration. We bring in people from the various economic development centers, so that they could talk about how they or what they require for them to move forward to assist that business in acquiring the capital, including putting together a little business plan and how to get their financials in order. But they get to meet with the actual lenders face to face, and they get to talk about what they need to do to prepare themselves to go to that lender for their request.
That's great. Now, so how many students would there be, or business owners, really? They're students and business owners. How many business owners would you have in a typical class?
Typical class, we're usually between 25 to 30. We try to keep it at that level. It's good for interaction and good for information.
And what is the typical session like? Is it more of a lecture type style, or is it somewhat interactive? Do you have the students do any tests or discussions? I mean, how does that work?
Yes. We do it all. We have a little bit of lecture. We have slideshows. Sometimes we have a lot of interaction. We have open discussion. We have exercises in some cases for the participants to get involved with. And often we will provide some quick little quizzes to assess their retention of the material as we're moving through the program. Okay. So we try to keep it lively, keep people from falling asleep and really enjoying it, and for them to maximize their time while they're there.
Yeah, that falling asleep is a big one, although I would expect if the Saturday morning, it doesn't start till 9 o'clock, they should be in pretty good shape. But I teach a couple of evening classes at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and a lot of my students have full-time jobs. They're up at 6 o'clock in the morning, drop the kids off at school, then they work all day, then a mad dash home, drop the kids off at the babysitter or what have you, and then they rush to class, and it's 7 o'clock, and it's not unusual for one or two of them to be at the back of the room, just kind of dozing off a little bit. But on the other hand, I have to hand
a big challenge for you, Mike. Congratulate you for enduring.
It's a big challenge for them. I have so much admiration for these students that realize they perhaps they didn't go to university right away. They went right to work out of high school, and then they got to be, maybe then they had a kid or two, and now they're 28, 29, 30. They've got a reasonably good job. They've got a couple of kids they're taking care of, but they realize to get to the next level at their place of employment, they need some additional education, so they come back and do it at night school. And I've got just a tremendous amount of admiration for these students. Some of them are so hardworking, and it is absolutely unbelievable. If you've just joined us, it's Biz Rap Radio with your host, Michael Manahan. We are talking to Jim Bursary. He's the coordinator of the USC Bridges to Business Success program, designed to help veterans and minority-owned businesses in doing business better. So, Jim, you talked a little bit about one of your sessions is focused on financing and how to fund your business. What other business topics do you cover for the people who enroll in this program?
Well, we touch on a lot of areas. One of the other very, very good areas that students appreciate is our legal session, which we have a very high-level attorney that comes in and discusses contract issues, discusses how they can collect funds, discusses how to evaluate their contracts. So it gives them a good exposure to understanding their contractual obligations and the legal responsibilities that they incur when they execute these contracts. So that one is a lively course, and he talks about some of the consequences for failing to properly understand the provisions, the conditions in a specific contract that you thought was relatively simple. And so he assists them and has them look at critical areas that they really need to be cognizant of and careful with.
That is so important, particularly I would think for a lot of the minority-owned businesses, because let's face it, some minority-owned businesses are people who've come from other countries. And doing business in other countries, whether it be, it could be anywhere. They could be from Mexico, they could be from Pakistan, but doing business in other countries is far different than doing business in the United States. I was just down in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I met with a fairly large construction company, and they were telling me they could buy a piece of land, design and build a 40-story apartment building in 12 months. I said, the United States, you wouldn't even get your plan through City Hall in 12 months. Never mind build the entire building.
Well, there is different business cultures throughout the world, and anybody then who engages in international business really has to be aware of the various business cultures of the people that you're going to deal with, especially in the export-import area. So, yeah, it's very different. And, of course, we really have to understand our business environment and our business culture. That's first and foremost. One of the other sessions that the students like is our branding and marketing, because one of the things that we need to teach them is, okay, you have your business, you're doing well, you get yourself certified. Now, where's your business? You got to go out and get business. You have to go out and let people know you exist. And how do you do that? How do you let people know what's this branding all about? What's really marketing? Is it just knocking on doors, sending out flyers? What is marketing? And so we give them some pretty good instruction in that area, and they can leave the class knowing a good deal about what they need to do and what areas that they need to expand on. Especially today with social media, that's a whole new area of marketing that has really emerged, and everyone is trying to understand exactly how that's going to fit into our old marketing methodologies and how we're blending in the new social media environment.
Well, yeah, you're right, Jim. It's so important. Marketing, finance, legal, all these things are critical to small businesses. You have to be up on this stuff. Now, we've got a couple of minutes left here, but I want to make sure we let everybody know how they can find out about this program. Where do they go for more information? Who do they contact? Do you have a website? Give us the information.
Good. I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, let me tell you about the program. The program that the University of Southern California established through a relationship. They are the operators of an entity called the MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency. The MBDA is funded by the Department of Commerce. They are under the Department of Commerce, and USC is the operator of that program. So the MBDA is one of the operators of this particular program. So the numbers that I'm going to give you is of USC's MBDA that are located in Los Angeles, and you can call area code 213-821-2541. The executive director of that program is Sergio Gascon. Sergio Gascon is the man that put this together and has been head of the program for quite a few years, and he's responsible for all these innovative aspects that have been introduced to help in this minority development area. The website that you can go to is you can go to info at USC Bridges Program, all one word, all lowercase, USCBridgesProgram.com, USCBridgesProgram.com, and that will give you some information. You can call, you can ask for me, you can ask for Sergio, and we'd be happy to give you more information and let you know what's next. But online you can register, and online you can email for more information.
Okay, that's fabulous, Jim. So again, it's Jim Bursary, USC Bridges to Business Success Program for minority-owned businesses, female-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. They have a 10-week course that covers everything from finance to legal to marketing, government contracts. We are out of time. It's BizRapRadio.com. Michael Manahan, your host. Jim, thanks so much for joining us, and we will be back right after these commercial messages.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Bye now. And we're back with Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thank you again for joining us. And we have, for this segment of the show, we've got a regular contributor to the Biz Rap Radio program on the line with us. We've got David Fraser, also known as the Market Monk. And David, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderful, Mike. Good to be back again. And you?
I'm great, and it's so nice that you agreed to contribute to our show on a regular basis and give our listeners perhaps more of a global or macro view of what's going on. A lot of our listeners kind of get tied up in what's happening with their small business and their local community, and sometimes forget the bigger picture and how what the government policy and monetary policy and just economic trends in general, how those things can still have an effect and an impact on your small business. And while you don't have to become, a macro economist or something like that, you do need to pay attention what's happening outside of your neighborhood and your hometown.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, most, if not all, small business owners, they want properly to focus on their business, and that's what they do. But it is very, very, very important that they do stay abreast, at least some degree, what's going on in the overall economy, because as you said, the overall economy tends to impact almost every business. And so it's important to stay abreast in some way, and just to keep it simple. You don't have to know about all the details and factors that I follow, but they need to have a general knowledge.
Well, one of the things that is a concern of mine as a small business person is the idea of inflation. And, historical kind of economics says when you increase the money supply, which our Federal Reserve has been doing, that you would expect at some point in time for there to be inflation will increase, interest rates will rise, and the value of the dollar will decrease. But the statistics we've seen is that we're not seeing significant inflation. But everybody remembers the stories about Germany back in the 20s where, you needed a wheelbarrow full of money to go down to the store to buy a loaf of bread. We've seen very, what they call hyperinflation occurring in countries in South America over the past 20 years and other certain countries in Africa. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to see significant inflation in the near term here in the U.S.? Is it something as we as small business people should be looking out for?
No, it's not going to happen. okay? And let me be a little bit more specific in what I mean, okay? You just asked me, is inflation, are we going to see inflation? I'm going to kind of seem to reverse what I just said. Yes, we're going to see some inflation. And whether or not we see inflation is not the important question. It's the rate of inflation, the rate of increase in prices, and whether or not we're going to see hyperinflation and huge increases in prices of various goods and services. So, yes, we're probably going to see some inflation this point going forward, some increases in prices. And that's a good thing, because if we do see that, it will illustrate quite clearly that the overall economy is improving. And therefore, businesses and individuals and households are increasing their purchases of various goods and services, their investments in homes and in business equipment and so forth, and that the demand for goods and services go up. People are buying more goods. Well, businesses are going to raise their prices to some degree. So we're going to see some inflation, but that's a good thing. The important question is, are we going to see big increases in inflation, hyperinflation? And the answer is no. It ain't going to happen. We've been hearing these fearmongers, or complete idiots that call themselves experts, it's one of the two, been saying for 5 years now we're going to have hyperinflation. Not going to happen.
Okay, well, that's good news for small business people, I think, probably for everybody. So, by the way, we're on, if you just joined us, we're on with David Fraser, the market monk, expert in macro economics and also in market trends. So, David, no inflation is not really a good thing. A little bit of inflation is okay, because that's kind of an indicator the economy's on the recovery. It's moving forward, but hyperinflation is not good. And you think we're going to have modest inflation, and that's going to be a good indicator for the business community. But let's talk a little bit about how what's what I call kind of the inflation creep or cost creep can occur in businesses. If all we have is modest inflation, what does that mean? Maybe inflation of a couple of percent or 3 or 4%. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, I wouldn't even say 4%. 4% might be getting historically a little bit on the high end, and that is for a broad basket of goods and services. For example, we're going to see the cost of attending universities continue to rise at a much faster pace than that for reasons that we don't have time to get into, I don't think, today. We're going to see the cost of health care in general continue to rise at a faster rate than that. But we're going to see the prices of various other goods and services rise at a much slower rate. So the overall rate of inflation for a broad basket of household goods and services, around somewhere in the 2.5% to 3%, maybe a little bit higher, and that's not a problem. And yeah, I agree with you, Mike. This is this show is about trying to help small businesses with matters that can help them manage their businesses better. But just very, very, very quickly, I just gave what sounded like an opinion regarding inflation going forward. Lots of people have opinions, and a lot of these people, most people regarding inflation rates have been wrong. So just very quickly, I'd like to support my opinion. That is the reason that I would have argued for 5 years now, and have been right for 5 years, that we're not going to see huge increases in inflation rates, even though the Federal Reserve has created this massive amount of money, is because households and businesses are still very concerned about what's going on in the economy, and therefore they're not increasing their borrowing and spending at a rapid rate. And if you don't have a big increase in spending, a big increase in the demand for goods and services, it doesn't matter how much money is floating around out there, you're not going to see big increases in inflation.
Gotcha. So let's
on what this means for small businesses. Let me put that to you. What would you like to talk about there?
Well, I'm thinking, and this is something that's happened to me a number of times. I've been called in as a consultant. Somebody says, Mike, look, I need help. 3 years ago, my little small business made $125,000 in profit, and last year we only made the next year we made $90,000 in profit, and this year it looks like we're going to be lucky to make $60,000 in profit. And I look at at the income statements, and I see that revenues have been relatively flat, but costs have been increasing. And the first question I ask is, look, it's clear just from looking at your income statement that costs have been increasing, yet your revenues are flat, so that's why your profits are dropping. Why aren't you increasing your prices? And a lot of times I get kind of this look back, and I said, well, you know what, we really didn't notice that our costs were increasing that much. You know, a lot of small businesses don't study their financial statements in detail. And I said, well, you manufacture a small product. Are you paying the same for your raw materials and your labor that you were paying 3 years ago? Well, pretty much, or close to it. But what you have to remember is small percentages in costs. You know, your raw materials go up, your electric bill goes up, your gas bill goes up, your insurance goes up a little bit, you give your employees some raises, you got your medical goes up. You start adding all of that together, unless your selling prices are keeping pace with that increasing cost, you're going to see your profits plummeting. And so that to me is kind of inflation on the micro level. You got to look at what's happening to the price components of your business right now and month by month, because if your costs are going up, even if it's only 2 or 3%, it can quickly erode your profits. And so what you really need to do is be making sure you're charging enough money to maintain the profit level in your business. So that's kind of what I take from that. And David, I'm sure you'd agree with me.
Well, I do agree with you, but I think I would add that during these periods of sluggish economic growth, overall economic growth and general economy, that we've experienced in the United States for the past several years, you know, if you're a small business owner, you're probably making the right decision by not raising your prices during, you know, the past few years, because if you did, your profits might even be lower because people aren't going to buy.
Well, that's a good point, too. And David, with that thought, we're going to have to wrap it up because we're at the end of the segment. It's David Fraser, the Market Monk. And we're back with Biz Rap Radio with your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you again so much for joining me on the program today. We had a very interesting discussion with Jim Bursary, and he's the coordinator of the USC program that's designed to help small businesses, particularly minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and businesses that are owned by veterans, to get them registered as minority businesses, because you can qualify for all sorts of contracts and government programs if you do. That's called the USC Bridges to Business. We also heard from the Market Monk, David Fraser, and talking a little bit about inflation there. And David doesn't think we're going to see any what we would call hyperinflation. That's really high inflation. But we are going to experience some price increases. So as you're keeping your eye on your costs, you want to make sure that you're also moving your revenues up to account for the increases in prices that you're experiencing. And that's something you should be monitoring on a fairly regular basis, just to make sure you don't get caught with rising prices and flat revenues, and that puts a squeeze on your company's profitability. Well, we've been talking about minimum wages over the last number of shows, and at a few weeks back, I said that I had come up with 10 reasons why minimum wages are really not a very good idea. And we went through 4 of those reasons already on the show. We talked about minimum wages limit workers' individual freedoms. Minimum wages limit the individual freedoms of the business owner. Minimum wages are unfair to people earning more than minimum wage, and minimum wages increase or result in the loss of jobs. So when your minimum wages increase, you're going to lose jobs. Now, there's a couple more reasons why minimum wages are a bad idea. Minimum wages particularly minimum wage increases hurt the poorest people the most. When minimum wages go up, and it is possible to increase prices, businesses will. However, the businesses that employ the most workers at minimum wage are also the businesses that most poor people frequent. As an example, poor people eat at fast food restaurants far more frequently than rich people do. So when the owners of fast food restaurants increase their prices, it is the poorest people who will suffer the most from those price increases. The minimum wage may temporarily help some workers, but the cost will be borne significantly by other low-income earners. That just doesn't seem to make much sense. I mean, you're going to help a few low-income earners by making everybody else who's not making that much money support those other people who are making a low wage. It's just absolutely no sense whatsoever. Another reason minimum wages are a bad idea. Any minimum wage increase is really a short-term fix. Now, an increase in the minimum wage will help some workers, but the effect will be short-term. If that's not the case, then why are we always needing to increase minimum wages? Well, the reason is because for those workers who do not lose their jobs, they'll find in the short term they've got more money to spend. However, prices will increase on what they spend their money on for two reasons. First, businesses will increase prices because those businesses have to pay more for labor. So minimum wages go up, some businesses will increase their prices. Second, the increased cash that some workers will spend will increase demand. And of course, we know the laws of economics stipulate that when demand goes up, so do prices. So the result is very quickly the increase in minimum wage has no benefit because the prices of the basic goods and services that the minimum wage earner needs all go up. So it's self-defeating. It's a temporary fix in the long term. It really doesn't help anything. And, okay, we're only up to number 6. I've got 4 more reasons why minimum wages are not a good idea. We'll explore those other reasons in upcoming shows of Biz Rap Radio. Again, you're listening to Michael Manahan, the host of Biz Rap Radio, the show that's all about entrepreneurs and small business and how we can hopefully help you as a small business person improve your company, your profits, build a company, expand a company, make more money. That really is what it is all about. Now, back to our ongoing feature of wacky and ridiculous rules and regulations from government. Just recently, federal agents raided an Amish farm at 5 o'clock in the morning because the farm was selling unauthorized raw milk. Apparently, if you're going to sell raw milk, you need a special raw milk license. Now, forget about the fact we've been drinking raw milk for about the last, 10,000 years or probably longer. But all of a sudden, now, if you want to consume raw milk or you want to sell raw milk, you need a special raw milk license. Apparently, 10,000 years isn't good enough. We had to come around and fix the problem by creating a crazy license that somebody needs in order to sell raw milk. I mean, is the government being overprotected? Are we beyond the stage where we can look after ourselves? Do we need the government to tell us what to do every step of the way? And do we have to have a license for doing absolutely everything we do? Where does personal responsibility end and the government take over? I, for one, would prefer the government have less rules and regulations and, let me suffer the consequences if I'm stupid enough to go about drinking milk that's bad. It just, to me, is just a huge infringement on our rights. But, of course, the other concern is when you have all of these rules and regulations, what are you doing to the small businesses and the entrepreneurs? All of these rules and regulations make it more difficult to open small businesses, more difficult to run small businesses, and I'm sure there are lots of people who would be running small businesses, but when they look at the hassle, the problems, the regulations, the rules, everything they've got to comply with, they say, you know what, it's easier just not even to bother to be a businessman. But we need entrepreneurs and small business people. It really is the savior for our economic way of life. It's the freedom and liberty that this country was founded upon. Small business people, farmers, blacksmiths, whatever they might be, leather workers, people who created their own income. They did not rely on government or a big employer for that job. They created their own income by producing something, a good or a service, which they could to sell to somebody else in need. And that's really the way it should work. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the show. BizRap Radio, fixing America through individual economic freedom. Thanks for joining me. It's your host, Michael Manahan. We'll be back again with BizRap Radio next week.